Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine. Welcome back to another session. Today we'll finish off chapter 10 because we just left with two topics. And the name of the chapter is New Empires and Kingdoms. So we're just supposed to control and cover these three topics, not two but three of them. So without wasting any time, let's get started. The first topic is very easy. Like, I won't even consider it to be a topic because it's just a new word that you have to learn here. So as in the last class, I told you what was the need to have army and how did the kings used to earn money. So land revenue was an important source back then, to pay to the army people, to pay to the soldiers, to maintain a secure line of defense for their own people. So now they started to have a well-organized army. That means besides having a lot of elephants, they also started to have a lot of chariots, which is more like a two-wheeler that has a horse attached to it. And then there were a lot of foot soldiers that are always there. And apart from foot soldiers, you know that there were cavalry. Cavalry means the soldiers who fight on, not on foot, but on animals like this. So we had a military leader who used to train them and who used to serve the king whenever needed. In the last class also, I told you that there were small assemblies or important people who started to attain power and gain majority support and do away with the king. So similarly, these people they sometimes received regular income, and at times they used to have, if not being paid regular income, some of them they were granted land. That okay, you take control of this land, and whatever taxes being penalized on those people, you can collect the tax and maintain the army. So that means they were called as and when required by the king. One of the most important person who maintained the army, the name of that person, the post was Samanta. So Samanta at times used to become very influential and powerful as compared to the king and used to declare his independence. So Samanta was basically a title or a position that was used in the ancient history by the army people of the king. Like nowadays, we have different posts of the people who belong to the army. So back then, we had the post called Samanta. He was the titular head of the army and used to declare himself independent at times whenever he wanted to grow more and more influential, because he already had so many troops by his side and he also was given charge of some piece of land. So why not? He said, I am independent enough. I can serve my people. So good to go. So that also helped subdue the power of some of the local kings. Now, apart from this, we'll move on to the next topic, that is assemblies in southern kingdoms. Earlier also, I told you guys that it was very difficult to administer a large area. So generally, to make sure that administration is smooth and easy, I'll talk of, let's say, Pallavas, the important kings who ruled the southern continent, subcontinent. And these people, they emerged powerful around 4th century and ruled around 500 years. There were a lot of important temples, sculptures that were made part of this empire. And definitely some of the very important rulers who attributed themselves to Simha Vishnu were also there. Mahendra Varman is one of the most important rulers of Palwas, but all of this is not given in your book. It is some extra bit of information, right? He was one of the greatest ruler, and it was started by, you can say, Simha Vishnu, this empire, in case you are interested. So he was the greatest one, and this was the one who started. Now I'll tell you how did Pallavas actually rule. The Pallavas, who had their capital at Kanchipuram, they used to rule through some local assemblies like this. Right? This section, they divided the empire into small sections, and they had small assemblies. Like nowadays, let's say we've got village empire, where we've got panchayat there. So similarly, one of the important groups, the first group, it is called Sabha. If it is called Sabha, that means it is an assembly that functioned through a lot of subcommittees. Some of them looked after irrigation, temples, roads, agriculture, different departments. And Sabha was the assembly of Brahmin landowners. Please understand, if I use the word Sabhas in Pallava's kingdom, remember it is basically assembly of Brahmin landowners, not any landowners. I'll again highlight, it is Brahmin landowners. So there were so many subcommittees. Brahmins had so many subcommittees. Some of them used to take care of agriculture. Some of them used to take care of the roads. Some of them used to take care of the temples. Some of them used to take care of the irrigation, right? Small, different sections like this, a lot of people engaged. Fine. Moving on to the next group. Let's say it is called Ur. Ur means a village assembly. Again, the assembly of a village, but this is not of Brahmins, right? It was of landowners. I've highlighted the term earlier that if it is Sabha, it is Brahmin, but if it is Ur, it could be rich landowners of that area, not necessarily Brahmins. We don't have Brahmins here. Second, third, if we have another group that is called Nagaram. So this was a group, an organization of merchants, or maybe you can call traders. So these are small groups how these people control, and most of these, may it be Nagaram, may it be Ur, may it be Sabha, like any other case, they were at times controlled by the most rich and the powerful landowners or the merchants who started to grow to power, influence slowly and steadily, and they started to exert their control and presence over that particular area. Fine, guys. Now let's move on to the last one, that is ordinary people in the kingdoms. As we know, during the time of Guptas, we've got caste system that existed. We've got 4 castes, and that caste system was quite prevalent at different kings' time period. So the ordinary people, they had a different lifestyle as compared to the king. There are a lot of plays that we find where we talk about their lifestyle also. But one of the most important person, if you've read about him in history, his name was Kalidas. He was such an influential person that he wrote so many plays, right? He was an author. He wrote many plays, and generally he used to write it in Sanskrit. Plays, poetry, a lot of them. Especially he belonged to Gupta Empire. So there's an interesting feature here that during Gupta period, we see a lot of people using Sanskrit language itself, whereas the ordinary people, they used to use their common language, which it made it easy for them to understand. They use Prakrit, whereas the Gupta Empire, or maybe the people of the court, they were using, the kings or other Brahmins, they were using Sanskrit language. So coming back to one of the court's person, whose name is Kalidas, who talks about his life in the king's court. So what is there about him? He wrote one of the most influential and most important plays. Let me tell you which is that play. You might have heard about that play, by the way. So this is Kalidas. During the Gupta period, he was known very, very important person. And he wrote about one of the important, he was a dramatist also. So he wrote one of the most important play. It's a love story, that is Abhijanan Shakuntalam. Abhijanan Shakuntalam. That means this is a love story between a king whose name was Dushyant, and he was fondly in love with a young girl, actually in love with a young girl whose name was Shakuntala. So that is how the play has been named as Abhijanan Shakuntalam. So it's an interesting story. Plus, he even talked about the condition of the court. And we find also evidence of how was the life of fishermen. They didn't have a very lavish lifestyle, but they were living in miserable conditions and not very happy back then. right? They were not at all very, very happy. So it talks about them also. Fine, guys. But as I told you, the life of ordinary people was not very smooth. They had to face a lot of repercussions, especially the untouchables. That brings us to the last part of this topic, ordinary people in the kingdoms. As we know a lot about the kings, where we get to know about their victories and lifestyle from the court poets or their duels, whom we call the court poets, or the ministers or prashastis. But similarly, if we talk about the ordinary people, especially one of the most famous Chinese pilgrim who traveled to India to know more about Buddhism, he talked about the condition of untouchables. You know, the untouchables were not treated very well. The people who were of high caste, they used to treat them very bad. They used to consider themselves mighty, powerful, and didn't really like them coming into the village. So the untouchables, they used to live at the outskirts of the village. And if they happened to enter the town or the market, they were supposed to announce, they were used to carry a drum or maybe make the other people aware that we are entering this place so that others could get away from them, and nobody was supposed to touch them, brush against them. That was the plight of the people of this area, that is untouchables of this time period. So they were not treated like any other human beings, but rather they were considered inferior, they were considered poor. That's not enough to add fuel to fire. They had to set an alarm before they enter the town or to get something from the village shops. So that brings us to the end of this chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed. In case you enjoyed, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.